Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, dish out on the movies. And today it's me, but I think Marco will probably chime in on my review and ranking, which I despise, of the Monk season 1 episodes. And if you've never seen the show Monk, please watch it now because it is a really good show. It's funny and creative. And
Yeah, you decided to watch Monk, and I decided to watch the rest of American Horror Story.
Well, anyway, it was a good time to watch something funny because it's been a very stressful last 4 weeks or so.
Well, I would disagree. I would say it's a better time to watch something horror since we didn't even get to have Halloween or basically any October be like horror at all.
Well, we did
Like-
watch a few movies.
But that was
That
like
were
full moon.
Full moon.
But full moon is different. Like full moon, they're not really that great at being horror movies for the most part. So it's nice to get to horror, the American Horror Story.
Well, anyway, Monk is about a detective who has undergone some very bad shock. His wife was murdered several years ago, like, I don't know, it was supposed to be like 5 or 6. And he has a lot of, what would you call it, mental illness problems. In fact, maybe right after it happened, he might have been committed. I don't know. I didn't really get that part of the story, but it doesn't really matter. He has phobias. He, like, for instance, somebody shakes his hand, he has to wipe his hands off with one of those cleaning cloths right afterwards, and his assistant carries, his female assistant carries these little wet wipe cloths with her and hands them. She's at the ready and she hands one to him. He is like, in a way he's autistic, but it's because he counts everything, and but he does it quietly. He doesn't do it loudly or where it bothers other people. I don't think. And I think it's a way, but I think instead of being autistic, which he's not, it's a way to calm him down. It's kind of like an anxiety thing. It calms his anxiety because it's making him think of something else. So that's what it looks like to me. And he just has all kinds of fears, but he's really smart. He's a genius. And because he is able to see things by just looking at little details, he's very detail oriented. And he puts puzzles together, even if he can tell, like, for instance, the captain, who's played by the guy who played the serial killer in what's the movie
That one movie
with
I know, the Killing Fields.
Marco, cut it out.
Oh, I know.
Hannibal,
the Deer Hunter.
Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, I know.
And Marco.
Manhunter.
Anyway.
Oh, I know.
He's plays the captain.
Oh.
And one day the
loudness of the sheep.
The captain. You're distracting me.
The captain.
I can't do the stupid review.
You're talking about the captain who.
The captain was played by the guy who was the
just,
serial killer in that Hannibal movie.
It wasn't Hannibal though. It was Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
Just so you get your facts straight.
Okay, Marco, are you just going to keep doing that?
Well, we have to make sure you get it right so
God.
so that people don't pretend like you're an idiot because you don't know the title of Silence of the Lambs.
Well, I'm just trying to get through this review. Anyway, he noticed that he was having trouble with his wife by looking at a few details about his clothing and other things. Just real briefly, like less than 5 minutes, he could tell that he was having problems, and the captain confirmed it. So that's just an example. So they're in this season, which is the first one Marco, do you happen to remember what year this premiered? I thought I wrote it down. I think I wrote it in my other notebook.
I think it was a year that, like, you don't have the excuse of, I was too busy to watch this.
No, I chose not to watch this because
why?
I had seen the Tony Shalhoub is the star of the show, and he played, I think it was the assistant, and then he turned into the bad guy of Spy Kids, the first Spy Kids, and I wasn't impressed with him at all.
Yeah, he was so like, ugh.
And then I found out that they made this show about him. I thought, ew, why would they do that? He's terrible.
Yeah, I thought I'd never watched that show.
Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't watch the show, but then I would hear when it came to awards time and throughout the season that it was a really good show. Everybody loved it. It won a lot of awards. And I thought, wow, really? No, I couldn't believe it. So anyway, here we come years later, and my son says, oh, this is a really good show. And he said, you want to watch a Christmas episode? Because I really like holiday episodes of different series. And I said, sure. So I watched one holiday, and then he showed me a few others.
The first one was Halloween because we had to carve pumpkins, which is always a pain because it takes like hours and hours.
But then we didn't do it this year at all.
Yeah.
I just bought pumpkins because we couldn't, keep them really. I just put them on the little small ones on the porch because we had to move. So
yeah, I was planning on carving 2 pumpkins so that it would say "fuck you," but I ended up doing that. But it was another thing where I had to force Safi to watch it because she was so adamant about, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that.
Because of that Spy Kids movie.
And then you watched just one episode and you liked it. And you were like, oh, wow.
I liked it because I thought it was funny and creative. And this season 1, was 12 episodes. And it was... I liked them all, but some I liked better than others. Some were outstanding, and then there were some that were like a B. They were really good, but I mean they weren't like outstanding, but they were still all funny. Even the ones that I didn't care for completely, because I wouldn't give them an outstanding or a B.
They were finding their footing.
They were still funny. And I really like, and that right, Marco said they were finding their footing, and that's true.
Just like with X-Files.
Well,
they never found their footing.
Well, they did sometimes whenever the mood struck them, or whenever a certain writer or writers...
Whenever Chris Cop-Out didn't cop out and ruin them.
Yeah, so anyway, it's kind of a stark contrast to the X-Files, which we just reviewed, and the whole and ranked, which was a pain in the ass, of 11 seasons and
2 movies.
2 movies
and a spin-off, even though we didn't rank the spin-off episodes. Because that show, all those episodes are just superior, except for the pilot. So
yeah, I think Marco has not done the statistics yet because we were trying to figure out. It was like a 50-50 thing, wasn't it? 50% of them were D's and F's, and maybe 50% were A's, B's, and C's.
Well, I've been working on it. 16% were F, 16% were D, 21% were C, 20% B, and 26% A's. And we figured out that the season with the most A's was season 2, which was surprising since that season had a lot of issues overall.
That's interesting. So this show is a little bit is different though because it's so creative because he has so many mental problems. He kind of like probably, I did work in the mental health department at the University of Illinois a million years ago, and we had a whole cross-section of people with all kinds of different things. It wasn't just stress, although stress was a big factor, people trying to get good grades. and passing, doing better than, because it's a high quality school. And but we had cross section of everything except we didn't have this phobia thing. I don't remember any but anyway, it doesn't matter. I've seen some of this, and autism. I've seen that in my son's school. He had a couple of autistic classmates, and even though he doesn't have autism, I think his whole illnesses are kind of related to PTSD, where his wife was murdered. Here he is, he's a genius at finding out, because he is a detective, or he was a detective, and he's really good at solving cases, but he has been unable to solve his wife's case, and it's been like 5 or 6 years, like I said. So I think this is kind of plays into his phobia or his PTSD. So anyway, whatever. This is just my opinion, but it's really creative because they just use little things that would not affect normal people. Normal meaning they haven't had this horrible event and had it affect them so horribly. And being a genius, I mean, you have all these factors combined. So anyway, the episodes are really pretty. They're very creative. I mean, some of the things they do are amazing, and those are the ones that I gave the best.
And then the worst ones were like the simpler ones or ones that were like disappointing.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, I'll start off with
the worst episode.
The worst one for me, it's Mr. Monk, because his name is Monk, meets a red-headed stranger.
Ew.
Which every time I looked at that, I got confused. Like, who's a redheaded? Because I'm thinking of a girl, Jessica Chastain, for example, has red hair.
What I was thinking of was the redheaded girl in the earthquake episode.
See, that's just like Marco. He's thinking of a girl with nice red hair, and I'm thinking there are not that many guys around that have red hair, and I'm like, so anyway, it's Willie Nelson. But the problem with it, the reason why I put it last, it was kind of white. And the person, well, first of all, Willie Nelson doesn't look like he has red hair. Maybe he does, but I mean, he's like, I don't know, I think he's in his 70s. And I mean, as somebody who had reddish hair, it does get gray, and it turns lighter. And I can't even describe his hair. He wears it in a braid, but it doesn't look red to me. That's all I have to say. So
no.
I get confused about when it says Mr. Monk meets a red-headed stranger. But somebody, I think, on the staff, maybe even the guy who plays Monk himself, is a big fan of Willie Nelson, and so they wanted to have him in this episode.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. It didn't even feel like this makes sense. Let's have a musician episode, a musician story. It just felt like somebody who worked on the show was a fan. Mm-hmm. Just like in American Horror Story Season 3, where they had Stevie Nicks in 2 episodes, and it just felt so...
Interesting. But anyway, the premise of it was that he got accused of murder, and Monk knew he didn't do it. And he had to find the real one, but the only witness to it was a blind woman. So what they had to do was prove that she wasn't blind, which he didn't think of at first. Everybody was convinced she was. And that's the problem I had with the episode. Not just that it was a light episode and that I just believed, like Marco, that somebody on the staff was a fan and they just wanted to put him in a show. The other thing is the actress who played the woman who was blind, I didn't think she was good. She didn't come off, she came off, you know how she came off as a really nice person, a good, decent person who would never hurt a fly. And that's what and when, she's supposed to have shot this guy like maybe in the back. And she would never have shot anybody, much less in the back. I could be mistaken, but she did shoot him to death. And Willie Nelson ran out there. He was close by, and he, because it was right by his studio, right?
It's
And
like in a boring alleyway.
yeah, there's nothing else. I mean, it's like a sparkling clean alleyway, which I don't know if you go to any city, there's not very many sparkling clean alleyways. So that was really weird.
There was. Remember when we stayed in Chicago to see that play, that Hell Cab, and that we stayed. There were some alleyways that were like clean for some reason.
Well, probably because of the area. What constant like theater and restaurant goers, they would have it. It wasn't neglected as much as maybe this area might have been. Or was supposed to be, but who knows?
Well, do you know what I think was the problem with the episode is that just the fact it just felt like they plugged in Willie Nelson to some generic murder mystery, and what they should have done is they should have personalized it to Willie Nelson. They never did a stoner episode in the whole series, and they easily could have had something involving like killing someone and smoking weed or something. Like, you know, they could have even done like a 1940s like Reefer Madness parody where they had like Willie get caught with a joint and then he's accused of murdering someone because everyone who smokes weed kills people according to Reefer Madness. So they could have done something like that to make it more personalized rather than.
Okay, well I better move on.
Well, you hated it. You did not like it. Like it just clearly stood out.
I thought she was a terrible. I didn't think she was a very good actress. She's just too. She presented herself as being too nice, and I just don't. Usually when they've had something like I've seen something like that. Only it was somebody in a wheelchair, and of course we did talk about that. They had this in the very first episode. But that he wasn't really, he was a hitman. He wasn't the person who was the actual killer going after, wanting to go after the person. So that's not comparable. Anyway, I guess one thing I wanted to bring up really quick also about we go on about the episode titles we have in the past, especially with X-Files.
Ew.
Where you have a title and it has no relationship to the content of the episode.
Tungusta.
And it's very hard to remember what the episode is because it bears no relationship. You're going, well, what was that one about? Because there's nothing in it. There's not even a clue as to what's in the episode.
Well, you know, it would be
that drives me crazy.
You know, it would be a really funny game. What if you got like some X-Files cast members together and you ask them, is this a real X-Files episode title? And you ask them a bunch of random words.
Guess the real like, X-Files episode.
Bregupta. Is that an X-Files episode? And then you'd have like Skinner going, yeah, I think it is.
Well, these are really more like mystery titles. If you read like children's mysteries, for example, like Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew, these are kind of like the titles that you would see in those books. So it's really easy to remember what the episodes are, you know. So the next one, my number 11, is Mr. Monk Meets Dale the Whale.
Oh.
And you're thinking, oh, this is about a whale? No, this is about 800?
Yeah, I think so. I think like he went from 1,000 to 800 or something.
Yeah, he lost weight. No, he's still confined to his bed, but Mr. Monk, a woman got murdered, and he believes that because he sent her all these threatening texts and had run-ins with her, that he killed her. But how did he do it? He never leaves his apartment. He's too big. And so that was what the mystery was, him having to figure out how he was the killer. And what he did, he had an accomplice who dressed up in a fat suit and made sure there was a witness. So anyway, which sounds bizarre. But I did not care for this a lot. I mean, I liked it because it was creative. I mean, that's creative. I've never heard of that before. And the actor who played Dale the Whale was not so good.
No, he was too good. He was just so annoying and so...
Well, I recognize him, but I can't think of where I've seen him before. And not in that capacity. He is not a heavy person. They made him out to look, and he did. He looked reasonably heavy. It was kind of hard to tell, actually, but, he could never leave the bed or chair or whatever it was he was in. I think it was the bed in the episode. So, that was something that would try to convince you that he was way overweight. And so that's all I'm going to say about that that episode. Number 10 is Mr. Monk and the Billionaire Mugger. Now, this was interesting, and it's kind of a story I've heard partially where you have the secret life of a housewife or something, and they're out and they're a hooker and they make tons of money, and or a guy who is married and they have really good marriage. Everybody sees it that way, and he's out all the time getting hookers and gambling or something. You see this kind of thing. This guy, I'm not exactly sure what he did, but he was a billionaire, and he would go out and I don't know what he would do exactly, but this one was he pretended like he had a gun and he was going to mug this person. Well, it then ends up that he knew the person that he was mugging, and it was not, he wasn't really mugging him. It was a joke, but guess what? The billionaire got murdered because the guy had a handgun because he was a cop, or a former cop, and he shot him because he was mugging him. So anyway, that was a mystery because he really wasn't mugging him. It was a joke, and I can't go into all of it. It's kind of complicated, actually. But anyway, that was creative too. It was a little different than what I've seen. My number 9 is Mr. Monk Meets the Other Woman. Now, this was a pretty good episode, and the woman who played the other woman was resembled in Monk's life his wife who was murdered, and he was very fascinated with her, but not to where he bothered her in a negative way. I thought that was very good. He was very hands-offish, but he really wanted to be close to her. It was interesting, and so they, like Marco said, we talked about this. The thing is, the mystery was pretty good.
Yeah, the whole episode was good.
She was actually accused in the show of being the murderer, and because each of these is about a murder. Okay, just wanted to say that too, and but the problem is they built up this episode to be like, where, oh wow, maybe Monk and this lady are going to get together because they really do have chemistry, and she's very supportive of him.
And then the ending just sucks.
But she has a husband who, in Switzerland, at some kind of mental health clinic, famous.
A rich people's
clinic, and I guess Monk knew about this place too. And he goes to therapy, by the way, regularly.
With Dr. Kroger.
Yeah, which is kind of funny, since we go to Kroger. And anyway, they build this whole episode up, not just like who did the killing, but that it wasn't her, it was somebody else. And then we find out about her husband, because they're still married, but they obviously don't have any relationship.
Yeah.
And because he's in Switzerland, she's in San Francisco, because this show takes place in San Francisco. And it ends up she wants to go back to her husband and give him another chance and try to help him out, because she was around Monk, and he made her realize that she loved him and that she could deal with it.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, because it's like...
And he didn't act too upset about it. I'm sure
I was upset as the audience member.
I'm sure he would have been, I felt bad for him that he would be very disappointed, but he's such a gentleman that he just accepted it. What could he do anyway? So, because that was already a relationship that was made. So, and he came into it late to the party. So, okay.
It was terrible. It was reminiscent of, Safi, if you remember that Psych episode where it was revealed that Gus was married to that woman, and they built the whole episode as like he left her or something, and it was like a redemption arc where her fiance was the killer, and so then it felt like, oh, by the end of the episode he's gonna get back with her, and then nope, they ruined that. Like,
Yeah.
it's so disappointing when they do that.
Well, I think that they don't know how to handle romance.
What do you mean?
Well, I
On
think some
Psych?
people the people who do a show like that, they don't know how to treat it the right way, and it doesn't come off as well.
It was
It's
terrible.
But of
so
course, fans
disappointing.
just are disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and the logic is, keep this in mind. It's like you eat Chips Ahoy cookies, and then one day you decide, I'm going to home make some chocolate chip cookies, which are, Chips Ahoy are chocolate chip, and you eat the chocolate chip cookies that are homemade, and instead of saying, I want to have more homemade cookies, for some reason you say, oh, I want to have more Chips Ahoy. These remind me of Chips Ahoy. It doesn't make any sense. It's just completely, and the reason is just basically contrived to where, oh, we can't have him be in a relationship now. It'll be too complicated or something.
Which is ridiculous. Okay, I'll try not to cough. I'm probably going to have to get some water. My number 8 is Mr. Monk and the Marathon Man. Sorry. And this is about a murder that takes place, but they have to figure out, they have a marathon in San Francisco, and the guy running the marathon, a certain person in the marathon, Monk knows he's the killer. But in this marathon, I guess this is something that they do, but I'd never heard of it. They each wear a computer, like chip. It's like in a little bag, or, something that they attach to their clothing. I can't remember. And this tracks their stops, and when they start, and when they finish, and all of it's timed. And so it's very exact and scientific. And the marathon man finished the marathon according to his chip. But there's no way he could have murdered this person, because he would have had to leave the race, and that would have been recorded in the computer. Because like I said, this records all of your stops, like if you get water, everything, and when you start and when you end the race. And so his was like perfect. It had all the stops, like it got stopped here, stopped there. But what happened was he did a little trick, which he found out at the end of the episode, and that was, and Monk used to be a marathon runner himself. So he was a little bit familiar with what would be going on, and so that kind of gave him an advantage that maybe somebody else who never run a marathon and dealt with this science bit to it would have. So anyway, there's this little camera truck, and it was following all the marathon runners, so it went the whole race, and it may have stopped a little bit because, there's all these people and they're getting a drink or whatever, clogging the way, and so it would kind of stop, and so it would be like somebody who had stopped to get a drink and moved on. So he had put in the back of this little camera truck some kind of little slipcase, and this was a small object, like that fit into your hand, the palm of your hand. So anyway, he discovered what happened, and so he solved the case. And it's a kind of like a C episode. I don't know. The guy who played the marathon man, he was like rich, I think, and he was full of himself. So The next one is number 7, and it's Mr. Monk Meets the Candidate. And this is actually the first episode of the season, and we've been through this over and over. This was kind of a two-parter, but they did not, at least in the list of episodes I had, they did not present it as such. It was presented as the first episode, but it was very long. I'm like, Marco, are all the episodes this long? And he said, no, this was an extended episode. So the candidate was this person, I think he was the mayor of San Francisco, or maybe another higher office, and he was giving a speech, and there were some people standing around him, and somebody shot a gun, and they hit one of the people near him, and of course they assumed it was the candidate. Well, it wasn't. It was one of the support people by the candidate, so to speak, and he got shot and he was killed. And so Mr. Monk had to find out what happened, who's the real shooter, and who were they really shooting at, because of course everybody assumed it was the candidate, and why not? That would be the reasonable assumption that people would have. So this was the initial episode, like I said, so it showed, his relationship with the captain and with his assistant, and with his assistant, Monk's assistant is a woman. What's her name? Sharina?
You haven't really talked about Sharona very much.
No, I'll get to that.
Really?
Sharona is a single parent, and she's a New Yorker, or New Jersey. I don't know which one, but she has a heavy accent. But she's very cute, and she's very... in real life, if you had an assistant like this would be like having a paraplegic person that you were helping, because she knows him from cover to the end of the book. She knows him so well and is able to help him and help others understand him, because he doesn't come off to other people very well. They think he's thinking or behaving towards them in a way that's not really the way it is. It's just that he's got so many phobias and nervous habits, and it's just really bad. He's not, he could be in bad shape, but she helps him. She's his support person and assistant, and she has a son. His name is Benji, and he'll be coming up in a couple of episodes. So anyway, he solves the case.
But what do you like or dislike about the episode?
Okay, well,
that's kind of the point of talking about them.
I would
if
say
people want to know what they're about, they can just go watch it themselves.
Okay, well, it was the first episode, so they're really finding their footing, and they really, they covered every little detail. It was probably the most detailed. I don't know, besides that movie that we saw that was unedited, and they just threw everything in but the kitchen sink, but it was still better edited than that movie, whatever it was that we watched. And it just went on really long. And since it was presented to me, and what I was looking at as one episode, I didn't realize that it was really meant to be a two-parter. So
well, that's how I watched it. So
yeah, that's how Marco watched it. So he watched it a while back, and I just watched it this week.
Yeah, I watched it in July of 2020.
Oh, okay. Well, that's 2 years ago. So anyway, it was okay. It was like a C to B. It just initial episodes, no matter how hard people try, usually don't come off well to me. They're rarely outstanding
to you.
To me,
because a lot of people it's sort of like a tradition where people really overrate either the first episodes or the finales. Like they'll say, "Oh, Breaking Bad, one of the greatest episodes. Oh, maybe the greatest episode of Breaking Bad is the pilot episode." And it's like, why? It's just like setup. It's just like, Yeah, it was a pretty good episode, but is it really the best episode of the series? Because that's saying, like, the shows just went downhill from there.
Yeah, I don't believe in that because you're actually fixing it.
Yeah.
It's called, like you're fixing somebody to win. Like these, never mind, we won't go into that. But anyway, it's not right. It's not honest, and I'm not like that. So
didn't it remind you of the Batman movie?
I guess so.
Couldn't you see how they copied stuff from this to put in the Batman?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it was like an average episode to me. So the next one is number 6, and it's Mr. Monk Goes to the Carnival. And you think, oh my God, this guy who has all these phobias went to a carnival. Well, he's really trying his best, and he had his assistant with him and her son. It was really for him, he's a kid, get him candy, do a ride. And what happens is a murder occurs there, and it's by a cop, and it's almost like an obvious thing of he did it, because the guy who was murdered was sitting right next to him on a Ferris wheel, and I'm not going to go into any detail, but it's one of those. He's a cop, and this guy was a bad guy, and he obviously did it. Well, no, he didn't, and Monk knew that. And it took a while, and it was kind of surprising, because it was one where there was an accomplice, and the accomplice was the person running the ride. And, of course, the accomplice gets murdered. So we don't have just one murder, we have more than one in the episode. But it was pretty good. We would go to because Marco used to be in 4-H, we would go to the county fair, and then my other son, Jim, we went to the state fair, and then we all three went to that. And because of their 4-H activities, and fairs can be fun. So, and those were extra special because they were displaying and trying to win trophies and ribbons and had their work displayed, and so it made it extra special. But I like episodes or movies about fairs.
And you're lucky, because for some reason, and this was one of the weirdest things, is that for some reason in season 2, they have another episode about the carnival, but they call it Mr. Monk Goes to the Fair, and it's all about this like weird gypsy woman in there, and there's like an elephant or something, and it's like it was hard when I ranked all the episodes, because I confused them. I was like, which one's which? Like,
yeah, that is. The only thing I can think of is a carnival is kind of like a stand-up thing with just rides, and a fair has more to it. There's contests and established things like and at the Ohio State Fair they make sculptures out of butter, and they have a pig racing contest. If you go out west, they have.
Did you enter the pig racing contest when they did it?
It's for kids. Okay, my next one is number 5, and you have Mr. Monk Takes a Vacation. Now these are when the episodes start getting really good, and actually the carnival one was getting there anyway. But Mr. Monk Takes a Vacation. Well, guess what? This is a vacation which involves flying. Now, somebody who has phobias is going to not be on board with flying, but actually they got through that pretty well. It's after they got there, they were at a resort, and this is where Benji, his assistant's son, comes into play. He's kind of bored, and Mr. Monk, he sits by the swimming pool, and he's wearing a suit. He's not even dressed, because he's wearing a suit, but it's underneath his clothing. So, he won't even let anybody see him wearing swim trunks, or maybe he doesn't want to get dirty. Who knows? But anyway, this is just how funny he is, or weird, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, the little boy looks at his viewfinders, and he's bored. He's like, what are we doing here? Why, this isn't any vacation to me. And he looks at there and he sees a murder. And they figure out he knows exactly where it was, and Mr. Monk believes him from the very start.
Sharona doesn't.
But Sharona, his mother, his own mother, thinks that he kind of like saw something else and mistook it for something nefarious.
I'm just sick of that in these TV shows, like the Andy Griffith Show, where like these parents like automatically jump to the conclusion that their children are wrong about everything.
Yeah, and
like with Andy, where he's like, Opie needs a whooping. Opie needs another whooping. Like, that's literally all he would say about his son, is like, he needs a whooping, he needs a whooping.
Yes, BS. But anyway, he was, Mr. Monk believed him and there even there was a hotel detective there, and she was she was more than cooperative. I mean, she bent over backwards believing what was going on and trying to help. And they had a hotel manager, and he just was totally like, no, this never happened. The kid made it up. And Monk would stand up for him and say he's a good kid. He never lies. He would never lie about anything like this. And I believe him. And so, of course, you know what happens. At the very last second, and this took, oh, no, not this one, but anyway, it was the very last minute. He was actually expelled. I mean, it was time for him to go because it was a very packed place, and there was somebody taking a reservation that would take his room. And so he even had to check out. And he was leaving the hotel. They got in their car, and they drove off for about 2 seconds, and they came back because he'd figured out where, what was it, the body was?
I think so.
And, yeah, and
because didn't they kept on like propping up the body in places?
It kept going up into different places because the boy had seen the body, I think, a couple of times.
Yeah.
And and he figured out that the body was of a maid, and just because of kind of how he had seen her in a plastic bag, the boy did, and in the back of a game module in the what do you call it? The room where they have games, and I can't think of what it's called.
You don't know Silence of the Lambs, and now you don't know Arcade.
It's been a long time. Well, it's kind of an arcade. It's a little arcade in these hotels. They just,
like in the Great Wolf Lodge.
Well, that thing's huge. And some of these places, you remember, like in restaurants, they're like one little tiny room.
Yeah, like at Marion's Pizza.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
And
that one.
That old laundromat we used to go to as well.
And usually a little tiny room, and the arcade at Great Wolf Lodge, I think it's a whole floor. It's huge because it includes a whole bunch of things. But a lot of different. It's really good. If you ever want to go there, they have a good arcade.
Yeah, that's about the only thing good that they have.
Well, they have all the swimming things if you want to do that. And the slides, and it's really cool. So, but anyway, he figures out, and every time he figures out a mystery, he gets this shit-eating, that's what they call, I guess, shit grin on his face. It just appears on his face. And so you know that he solved the episode, and so does his sister.
He solved the episode.
Solved the episode, the case of the episode. Of that one particular episode.
But are you getting to Sharona? Because you still haven't really talked about like anything of like what you like or don't like. You just kind of explain the episodes.
Okay, well, Margaret wants me to talk about Sharona.
Well, you
in terms
know
of this
as well
episode,
as I
she
do.
was bad because she would never believe her son.
The
whole episode.
You were complaining. You were bitching about Sharona. You said I don't like her. Or no, at first you said, "Are they going to get together?" You said, like, are they a couple? Because it's just so strange. Like, she's practically with them, like, 24/7.
Yes, and she gets tired of it. And also, there's this whole thing between her and him about being paid.
Yeah, she acts like a real... And it's funny, because then the actress left the show because she didn't feel like they were paying her enough.
Yeah. But she had a big role in it because she was by his side all the time. And it's just that she always finds a guy that she likes and she flirts with him and she wants to go off with him. And Monk knows, I say, for the most part or all the time, that the guy's no good. He's married, he's bad, he's lying. He knows. He can tell. He looks at him, he might see his hands.
Sharona, you've been really nice to her. She's kind of a whore. Like, she dates like anyone she meets.
Yeah, she likes everybody in pants, basically. Especially if they pay attention to her.
Yeah, like she almost even kind of started falling in love with Dale the Whale.
Yeah. Oh, ew. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But yeah. And it's so weird because here she's a single parent and she's so worried about her son, but then she behaves like this in front of her son.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, irritated me. But Monk can't do without her. And the thing about her not getting paid is, I guess he never took care of the bills when his wife was alive. She took care of the bills. And now his assistant does that. And so he doesn't know about what she needs in terms of the money because he doesn't do it. He doesn't pay attention.
The only defense that her character has, besides the fact that, there's tons of people like her and it's just kind of like a normal thing now, it probably wasn't this normal in like the early 2000s, people like her. But the only defense is that Monk is hard to be around.
Yeah.
And, that stuff would really get on your nerves fast.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She's indispensable.
Like, that I don't know if you know yet, but like in future seasons, one of his like most stupidest things is like he won't allow anyone to use his bathroom. Oh. And so like, which is weird because you think about, what about his wife? Like, she was alive so she couldn't use their bathroom? Like, that's just really bizarre. And there's stuff like that it's just like, okay. Ugh.
Okay, well, I got to move on. All right, the next one is number 4. So we're almost done. Mr. Monk and the Psychic. And Psychic. So it's not sidekick, it's psychic. And what happens is this person, they show the murder. This is kind of like the one an episode where you see the murder right off the bat. You see the murderer do it, and you don't know who it is exactly, but then you find out it's somebody important or famous. This happens to be the police commissioner, so it's somebody important and somebody famous.
He was a good bad guy.
And he was a very good bad guy.
He was creepy.
He knocked off his wife. Well, he made it look like she went off the road. She was driving too fast because she had heard that their dog was either sick and or missing. And she was so upset about the dog because she loved the dog. And it was, I think, dark or rainy. And she went around the curve and she went off the road. But that's because he set it up for her to do that. And also lied about the dog. There's nothing wrong with the dog. And so the next morning, because there was a mudslide, the car was not hidden in the debris, the brush and debris. It was more revealed, and the car was the psychic woman. She's been known to the police department and been trying to be involved in all kinds of cases, and she's always been wrong. She's terrible at what she does because she's not really psychic. She just says that to get the money. And Monk knows this, and he doesn't ever believe anything she says. And so what I liked about the episode was that, she wakes up in her car asleep by the car of the lady, and she thought the lady drew her there, and that's why she was there. which was a bunch of hogwash, because she was in on it, just to cover up, or whatever you want to call it, with the commissioner. He paid her, but they didn't know that until the very end. It was kind of a hard case to solve, and because it was hard to prove, and it took the help of the psychic to help solve it. But anyway, what I wanted to say, but yes, the commissioner was a really good villain, probably one of the best, because he was so tricky.
Yeah, I mean, you could actually just rank the villains.
Oh
rank
boy,
the
Marco was really into the ranking. I don't want to do that, but he was really good. But the thing what made him even better was that he was police commissioner, and trying to show that a police officer or any member of any police department is the bad guy is very, very hard.
Well, that's
people
another.
Never believe you.
That's another cool thing is that one of the things that was really good about the show until the final season was that he feels like an outsider, just like Mulder felt like an outsider to the FBI, and so like they could get away with having like evil police stories, whereas in a lot of these shitty procedurals, it's
hard.
The police are always the good guy. They're just boring. Like they just have these boring characters.
But that's like in real life too. It's the same thing. You have a regular police department, and somebody's beating up their wife, or they've committed murder up in Illinois, up in the Chicago area. You know that case or cases, and nobody believes that they could have done that. But
you just have like the killer in California, the Golden State Killer who didn't get caught until like he's 80 years old or whatever. You know, like, and so I like how in this show, you know, there are multiple like villains who are in the police, and it seems like the show is fair with that. You know, they're not just gonna, you know, pretend like there can't ever be an evil police officer or an evil this or an evil that.
Well, but what was different about this, even more different, was that it was the police commissioner. That's just not any police person. That's the big whiz guy.
Well,
who's the head of everybody.
That'd be less surprising that they're evil, though.
But what I liked about the episode was that it took everybody to trap him. Even the psychic agreed to do it, and so they found a way and they got him. But it took everybody's cooperation. I thought that was really good. So anyway, and it was interesting because, I mean, like I said, he was a big deal in the department because he's way over everybody. And he was the murderer. They show it right away and they solve it. Or Mr. Monk solves it. So, okay, I have 3 more, and my third one is Mr. Monk Goes to the Asylum. And this was kind of a mixture of a good case, but it was sad because what had happened is Monk's wife had, been murdered, passed away, and he, for some reason, what was the anniversary of the murder, or some kind of anniversary to do with maybe her birthday?
I don't know, there's always some sort of like an anniversary with like his wife or something, like, today was the day where my wife and I held hands.
Yeah,
and went to the park.
And she liked Willie Nelson too, and Willie Nelson sung at her grave.
Oh yeah, Willie Nelson. Like
I didn't mention that.
Oh yeah, like everything has to be about his wife. Like there always has to be some little connection. You'll get to see in the first episode of season 2. There's something about like a poem of where like he sits in the spot where she sat when she wrote a poem or something. It's really cringeworthy at some points. But just why did you like the episode? Just explain why.
I like the episode because it was there were a lot of the thing is I thought it was a mixture of sadness, but also that he solved the murder, but it was of the really good psychiatrist who was helping people, but for some reason he had this dark side to him and he committed a murder. And And he was a little hard to figure out as the murderer too, because he helped people, and how could somebody like that be a murderer? And
yeah, he was a better villain because he really he knew how to help people,
right.
So he was able to like use that stuff more effectively.
But the reason why Monk was there was because he had entered this house and he would think he was going to cook dinner for his wife, and he started looking for the ingredients to make some kind of dish, and he couldn't find them, and they were not in the right place, and nothing was in the right place. And he calls Sharon, and she said, "Get out of there right now, get out of there, get out of there." And what happened was, that was somebody else's house now. It wasn't their house. And he just didn't, this was like 5 or 6 years ago that he had last been in this house. And so he had to go for a psych evaluation, and that meant like, I don't know, 48-hour stay in a psychiatry place, like an institution or something. And so that's why he was there, and I just thought that was really sad and awful. And but he was a good sport about it. He thought he was going to be evaluated and go, but he had to stay there, and he wasn't going to have Sharona with him. She gave them all kinds of directions. Basically, they just ignored them.
Yeah.
And
which is another thing that's weird.
But he was trying his best to adapt, you could see. And so you have all that, and then he, of course, because he's a detective and it's what he likes to do, and he's really good at it, and he figures out what happened, who the killer was, and then they show some of the other people who stay there. There was one guy who believed in Santa Claus, and he said he'd seen Santa Claus, and what happened was the psychiatrist who was the villain, the killer, dressed up as Santa and was trying to get a gun that he had hidden.
And to be fair, you thought that was goofy.
Yeah.
And so that was one, you just talk about what you thought of the episode. Stop just explaining the whole episodes.
Anyway, I just thought it was
a waste of time.
It was really, there was kind of like a personal element to it that was different, that nobody else, no other show I've ever seen had. Because remember, he's the crime solver, but he has a mental illness, and this was, they considered it so bad that he had to. And the people didn't press charges either, but they considered it so bad they made him stay in an institution for at least 48 to 72 hours. And to me, I just thought I couldn't get over it. I just thought it was awful. It was really sad. So anyway, moving on. Last two. Number 2 is Mr. Monk and the airplane. And here we go, he's on an airplane, but before that, he's at the airport, and he sees something funny, and he thinks he knows what happened.
Are you going to go through this whole
and it gets
episode now, too?
during the airplane flight, but of course, he had all these nervous habits, and he had all these run-ins with the top flight attendant, who Marco told me in real life is his wife.
What did you like and dislike about the episode?
I liked the fact that he was really tricky, that he was, and he enlisted the help of a person who sold extension cords and Sharona to help figure out if this guy was a killer.
But what did you like or dislike about the episode?
What I liked about it was just, I thought it was interesting and fun and unusual. I'd never seen an episode like this of anything where somebody had seen something at the airport and they took it on the plane. And the guy, it was actually, he was going to get away. As soon as I guess, what was the flight going to? New York, and then they were going to take that to Paris. And so if the guy went to Paris and the woman he was with, if they had made it on the plane to Paris, it would have been maybe never, they would have caught him. And it took several phone calls from the plane by Monk
But what
to the police department, and just the whole thing was really
What
good.
did you?
It was detailed and involved and fun and interesting.
And it
And
was
then-
the finale. It did not feel like a finale.
Yes, and that was the only negative thing. I was shocked that it was the finale, and I wasn't realizing what number of episode I was on, because I just really enjoyed it so much. I just kept watching each one right after another and not really paying attention.
Yeah, you had like 5 or 6 days that you weren't watching any of it because you just went through it so fast.
Yeah, and this was supposed to be a finale. Well, there was nothing finale about it.
Yeah,
Not
nothing.
anything. And so I would never have known until I looked up and go, Marco, is that the last episode of this season? Yes. He said, I know. It wasn't like a finale. And it wasn't. I would never have known because I could have just gone to the next episode because it didn't skip a beat.
That's because just like with X-Files, these people have problems making finales. Like, I don't get it too. Like, it's so strange how these two shows are like these really iconic shows, and both of them suffer with making finales.
Yeah.
And you think about how important finales are to any good TV show. You know, finales are supposed to do something.
Well, also, and they can connect to the next season by leaving a cliffhanger, which is usually the way it used to be. But,
Well, they're supposed to resolve all the conflicts that have been going on that season.
and that too.
And they don't really do that.
No.
Like, if anything, it feels like a in-between episode because the captain isn't even in it.
That's right.
Which is surprising while you're spending an hour doing your 12-episode review because you just explained through the whole episode.
I guess
Like
that's just how I am.
you didn't
I'm
even
sorry.
mention, like, the captain isn't there. Like,
Well,
this is the only
that's right.
episode in the whole series.
And I asked Marco, I said, is that what signifies that it's a finale? That the captain's not there? I mean, is it like, because Marco's seen it all. And so I said, is every finale like that where he's not in it? And he said, no.
In fact,
No.
in the series finale, he's almost like more of a main character than Monk's assistant.
So it was really good and very creative. And then the final episode, my number one,
Yeah, the best episode.
because it was just so creative. I keep saying that, and I'm sure you're sick of hearing that. But it's called Mr. Monk and the Earthquake. You know, this is San Francisco. You know, they're near the San Andreas Fault. They've had a famous earthquake which destroyed the city. So, of course, they have an earthquake.
Well,
And they're in danger of having earthquakes now to this day.
They had like a movie like with The Rock, and it was called, like, wasn't it called San Andreas?
Yeah, I didn't see it. Marco obviously didn't see it either. Because, you know.
I don't watch anything with The Rock in it.
Well, I don't care about that.
It's a sign of, to me, it's like a sign of cheapness. Like
well,
a
he's
sign
okay. I don't
like,
dislike him.
I don't like these movies that are just built around this person is in it,
Well,
or this person is in it.
Marco's not familiar with, but they used to have more than now. All these, they call them disaster movies, and this would fit the disaster movie category.
Well, and I hate disaster movies too.
Yeah, I don't watch disaster movies.
Yeah,
so,
you do.
No, I don't.
You're obsessed with Independence Day.
Well, that's different.
That's a disaster movie, Safi. Yeah.
No,
That's,
I don't believe it. I don't agree with that.
God.
So
Safi.
what was really good about this, they have this earthquake, and Monk has been at his place by himself. Sharona was at her place, and you could see the damage. The shock lasted, it was very deep, so it was like a 9 or an 8 or whatever. And I guess it wasn't a 9 because it would really be, buildings would be toppled over. But you go to Monk's apartment, she goes there, and it's a disaster. It's a mess. There's crap everywhere, but he seems okay. And so she starts talking to him. He's talking in another language. And what happened was his mental illness is so, I can't even, it's a compilation of many little illnesses that you hear about, but it's so weird or bad or strange. He starts talking another language, like a tongues kind of language, if you know what I mean. I've seen this happen. Um, um, and it's a language, it's not Italian or French or something. It's some kind of indiscernible language, and he doesn't know it. He thinks he's speaking English, and so anyway, there's a problem happens, a murder happens, and of course he's got to solve the crime, and he can't speak English, and so it's all trying to get through this. And the psychiatrist said it would get better. It could be resolved in a day, a week. He wasn't sure, but he says this has happened. He was familiar with the phenomenon, and
I didn't have this episode at the top because this episode is probably the primary episode where Sharona is a problem.
yeah,
she dates the bad guy,
and she doesn't know it, of course.
And she complains the whole episode to Monk about getting paid, and there's this whole subplot with that where we see like the guy who pays Monk or something. It's really I can't even remember because it was just so not important to the rest of the series.
Well, I liked it a lot because I just thought it was so creative.
Yeah, the main part was creative.
To have this happen, and he, of course, because that's who he is, he's trying to figure out the mystery, but he can't communicate what he's thinking or what he wants people to do or help him with because they can't understand him. So they have to go get through that. And it gets better and better. And then in the end, they have this little comic thing where she talks about her money again. And she talked about it constantly during the show, like Marco said, which was kind of annoying. And then he pretends like he's speaking that language again, so he can't understand her. But she knows he's full of it, and he doesn't really mean it. And he smiles too. He knows it too. So it ended in a funny moment. But she was the bad guy almost killed her. And so she, really flirted and was getting close to the wrong person because he was just using her to cover up what he was doing.
As usual.
The crime. So anyway, like I said, I really liked this series. It was a good thing to watch after all the stress season 1 of Monk. It was a good thing to watch when you're stressed out and kind of like in shock, and from moving to a big place to a small place, from a big place to a small place, and trying to fit everything in there and having to leave a lot behind.
Well, it's temporary.
Yeah, right. At least for a year anyway. A year of temporariness, which is not a word. And because it's a season, we give a season of shows a food review, like we do with movies. Now, if this had just been a singular show, I would have given it a grade. But since it's a season of shows, I gave it a food review, and what I did was I gave it our Thanksgiving dinner, and we had a problem because we didn't have the right roasting pan for the turkey, and what we had wasn't big enough, and we had to go back to the old house and dig through all the stuff that's everywhere, and there it was. But the thing is...
Yeah, because we were so focused on getting out of there by a certain time.
Well, it was also cold. The house is cold. There's no heat, there's no electricity, there's no light, and it's really awful to be in. It's very unwelcoming, and there's trash everywhere because we had no trash service, and we couldn't get everything, because we have so much stuff, but I don't want to go into all that. But anyway, I gave it the Thanksgiving dinner because it was the first time in 10 years I had been able to taste my entire Thanksgiving dinner, and I enjoyed it. It was nice. And that was really, be close to how this season was, because It had a lot of different elements. It was very creative, and it was like a something with many parts to it. A lot of different parts, but they all came together. And for the most part, it was funny, it was entertaining, and I just liked how they made the most out of simple things too. Or they picked up on things that nobody would pick up on, or because he had this mental illness problem, other detectives, private investigators wouldn't have the problem. They wouldn't be able to incorporate it into the episode. But they were able to do that with this season, and it worked well. So, and that's it.
The only problem with your rating is the fact that we ate it at like 11:30 at night.
Yes, that was a problem.
That kind of ruined the whole dinner experience.
Well, it didn't.
So,
well, you just don't understand, and I know you don't. But if you can't, I haven't been able to taste anything, even my toothpaste, for years, a decade.
Well, that's different.
Decade.
I mean, like you're saying objectively, the Thanksgiving dinner is this season.
Well, it is because it just has, because I could taste everything. It has all these different components, and it did. Marco's sticking a stick in my face, and I really enjoyed it. It was something, and it was funny. I laughed all the time. You know, some episodes, like I said, were better than others, so I laughed more in those episodes.
Well, just think you can watch one tonight.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, you're talking about something, they're solving a mystery. It's a murder every time. And there could be a robbery too, or something like that. Something goes missing, but mainly it's a murder a day, or, you know, an episode. And he's really, really good. And it's not a Sherlock Holmes thing. It's a completely Monk thing. I mean, there's no comparison to anything. And I read all these kinds of mysteries. I read tons of mysteries. I've read like 2 books a week, 3 books a week sometimes.
I will say that it you know what a tough question is, which show is better, Psych or Monk? Because
that is a tough question, because you're talking about 2 people who are equal parts, and
well, they had these
plus
really
the dad.
They had these really good crossover episodes. I mean, not episodes, of advertisements where they had Monk and Mr. Psych in the same room talking to each other.
Oh, really?
And it was really cool.
Oh, that's neat.
Well, I personally feel like Monk is better, but I do feel like that Psych had more potential. It's just that as Psych went on, it teetered off because they I don't know, I guess they didn't know what to do.
I know, but that was like a whole different premise, and it wasn't.
It's a similar thing though, where
mentally ill.
It's a similar thing where they even talked about it, where it's like a comedic procedural.
Right. Yes, and that's good, because sometimes those procedurals can get a little bit too dark.
They're too dark. They're too boring. They're too dull. They all have this ugly, washed-out color scheme, and Monk and Psych have a very bright color scheme.
They do. It's very San Francisco. Okay, so I'm done now, and I hope you enjoyed that.
You sure you're done?
Give it a like if you
How
like.
How would you rank the
No.
pictures that they had? Because I felt like some of the pictures turned me off of the episodes.
I don't know. I didn't even pay attention to them.
On Amazon.
It didn't help me at all.
Because I thought, I'm not looking forward to watching that. The picture looks like crap.
They didn't do anything for me. But if you like this audio, video, whatever, give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers. If you've seen Monk, and tell me what you thought about it. And if you saw Spy Kids 1, I believe, if you would have seen, what's his name, Tony Shalhoub as a character in that movie, which was completely different than this one, if that would have kept you or stopped you from watching this series, which it did for me initially.
Safi,
years ago.
You want to know a good funny statistic?
What?
This video is 30 minutes longer than the video I made where I ranked every single episode of the show.
Okay, well, Michael's a lot more succinct with this because he's used to doing it, and I'm a different kind. I'm not used to speaking off the cuff, and that's another thing.
You've been doing this since 2017.
I've never been comfortable with it. But I've never been comfortable with it, and anyway, I thought I did pretty good because I didn't have much trouble, and I hate ranking, but I didn't have much trouble ranking because it was so good. The season was so good.
Season 2's better.
Oh, so. I can't wait. So hopefully my review of that will be shorter. How many episodes are in season 2?
Well, I think every season after this one is like 16 episodes.
Oh, so just a few more. So anyway, goodbye everybody.
Bye.